Me. Figaro.
Rightio. Right, I think we're ready to go now.
All right, do it.
Pause. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening. Richard is not here at the moment, which is a bit of a shame because he's been wanting to do this episode for a really long time. So the fact that he's got to miss it is, I'm kind of upset for him. But there you go, is what it is. So never mind. To replace them, we've got Mr. Mike.
Mike,
Dale
it's a
from Apple Tree
podcast.
Studios.
You can't wave. You have to be like, hi.
Oh,
Dale
that's
from
right.
Apple Tree
Podcast, I
Studios.
forgot.
There. Dale from Apple Tree Studios. Hello. And returning as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
Much to Jamie's chagrin. How are you?
Just a reminder, this week's podcast is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad over at Man Crafting, who makes these awesome powder-coated custom Yeti mugs, Pound from Highland boxes, and of more awesome, amazing resin and hybrid blanks, and Steve Nealon, who takes all my credit for sorting out the website. For more information on our podcast sponsors, go over to megasinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors. Mr. Cute, do we have any random questions?
Yeah, but before we get into that, I just first want to say that I am not responsible for the content of this podcast. This was a decision made by Jamie Page and not by me. And if anyone is wondering why I'm here today, I am just here for the no kiddings and the oh yeah, because outside of that, I have absolutely nothing to offer. But we have a lot of questions regarding the. And so, if you'd want me to get started with those questions, I can do that now, Jamie. Or if you want to, kick it around a little bit, I don't care. It's up to you.
Yeah, well, I think we can probably do that.
All right. See, I give Jamie an either or, and he goes, "Yeah, we can do that." That's helpful. Thanks, Jamie.
That means you decide. You got to have some sort of input in today's show.
Oh, okay. Then I'll start with the questions because hopefully that'll get me out of this in a hurry. Chris Murray. Hi, Chris. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, Mr. Dragon?
I like Chris. He's a good dude.
How you doing, Chris?
He says, his question is he's not saying, he's asking. What was the first thing you guys made on a scroll saw? And I could actually answer this, so I can chime in on this one.
Do you want to go first, then, Chris?
Yeah, I don't remember because I was 14 when I got the scroll saw, and I'm sure it was a POS. So I mean, that's my answer. Because the scroll saw I got when I was 14, I still have now, and that's the only one I have. And I am now years of age, so it's like it's been a while, so I have no clue. I'm sure it was something stupid.
Your scroll saw made out of stuff.
I think. Can I just quickly say something? Mark the General Woodturner has made a good point. We should treat the scroll saw like Beetlejuice. If Chris mentions it 3 times, there's going to be one in his workshop.
No. Don't.
Is that what was routers and Richard? If we say Team Router 3 times quickly, does Richard turn up?
That's just not right. Anyway, I will start with our guest, Jamie. You can wait. Dale.
Right.
Dale, what is the first thing you ever made with the scroll saw?
Oh, it was a joint for a drawer. I did a dovetail joint with for a drawer rather than using a fine saw. I thought, I know this 70 quid scroll saw that's been sitting at the corner of the workshop forever is that's the ticket. And from there, I moved on to a channel logo, and just messed around. But my first scroll saw was a nightmare, so it's not a good choice. It's not an easy one for me to ask. I did a lot of crap to begin with in the scroll saw.
You have the same scroll saw I do. Mike, what about you? What was the first thing you ever made?
The first thing I ever made was on a benchtop brand. It was a Kmart brand scroll saw, and it was a #1 mom. My kids made for Mother's Day, and you can't really see it. Well, you're on a podcast, but on the YouTube, you can see the choppiness. It was a pinned blade, and it was junk.
And that's like the one I had.
But because at that point in time, well, because I mean, to kind of describe it to folks, it says number one mom, which you scroll saw it out, obviously, and then placed on a board. Then behind that are the hands of the 3 children you had at that time, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now he has since had a 4th, so he has to do another one.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have to do a new one. But this time the girls are doing it. They like scrolling, so they're going to cut their own hands. You know, the prince. I don't know if he'll make
They're
it in the shop.
going to join Carl and Eloy.
Yeah,
No. No, they've actually scrolled. They haven't cut their finger yet. They probably scrolled longer than Carl and Eloy and haven't cut their finger.
You're a bad influence, Mr. Murray. All right. Anyway, Jamie, what about you? What was the first thing you ever did? Do you remember?
The very first few things that I ever done were mainly silhouette pieces. And to be honest, like Mike and probably the rest of you, I've always had a desktop scroll saw, and I've still got a desktop scroll saw. And then the first real piece, I guess, I have still got it, but I couldn't be asked to move my bandsaw to get to it, to be honest. I've still got it, and it is a portrait of John Lennon. It was done on it was a company in the UK called Energer. The saw table was probably about, I don't know, if it almost felt like, I don't know, but maybe about half a foot wide. About that at its widest point. It was a company called Energer. It was really not the best. It was a pin blade saw. So yeah, it wasn't the best, but yeah, it was a portrait of John Lennon, which was probably my first real project. The rest of the stuff was, like I say, silhouettes of dogs, cats, that sort of stuff.
So
name blacks mainly.
You've pretty much always done portraits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the only time I break out that scroll saw that I have that I need is when I know I need to make an interior cut on something. And I mean, because I don't care about the scroll saw I have scroll sawed 2x4s. The interior of 2x4s before out with a scroll saw. I mean, it does work. You just have to, you have to have the talent to really, or I don't know, the appreciation to enjoy it. I use it out of necessity. I don't do it because I love to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because a scroll saw can, unless you're, I don't know, some bandsaw guru, I can't make the tight corners on my bandsaw that a scroll saw would. And when you're doing a decorative piece, like on the inside piece of a wood, you really need that tight turn that a scroll saw will give you, as opposed to what a bandsaw can do. At least for me. I mean, I'm sure there are much better people that are prolific at a bandsaw than I am, but that's when I use my scroll saw.
But that speaks to the history of the machine. The machine is, after all, a fret saw or a coping saw, a mechanical fret saw or coping saw, and that speaks to its history. And that's kind of what, I mean, that's why I bought one originally, was that, I want to do certain tight, intricate things, but I can't be bothered spending an eternity with a fret saw hacking on that. All
right. Well, the next question that Chris had was, and this kind of gets into the hardware, the machine itself. What are your tips for people looking to buy a scroll saw? If you are trying to give somebody, I'm assuming, Chris, if I'm wrong, then you correct me, my friend. I'm assuming he's saying if you don't want to break the budget, but you don't want to give somebody a bad experience with the tool, because let's be honest, if you go cheap, you can get a bad experience and never want to pick up another scroll saw again. But if you had, let's say, a mid-range scroll saw that would be for a beginner who just wants to get into it, that isn't going to break the bank, do you guys have a recommendation? And I don't care if you use brand names or whatever. I mean, just if you have something that you can put forth and put it forth. Dale, do you have anything in mind? I mean, you could be talking primarily UK.
It's the UK is quite polar in terms of the equipment you can buy. You can either buy what I would call decent entry level devices and scroll saws, and then you're kind of kicking the budget into lathe territory quite quickly. So I guess most of the machines in the UK follow that same reference design that the Harbor Freight one does, and the Record Power one does, and the Axminster one does, and the Wren one does, and they're the same basic 16-inch saw. So my recommendation would probably be to spend, from a UK perspective, would be to look long and hard at Axminster's low-end machines. Model number escapes me specifically, Record Powers 16 SS.
Yeah, SS16V.
Yeah, and those machines are good entry level machines. If you get bitten, or if you've got any capital behind you, have a look in the second-hand market and look for anything that looks and smells like an EX21 or an Excalibur 21 in the second-hand market in the UK. You'll pay £200, £300, £400 for such a device second-hand, and it's really paying attention and looking at it. But other than that, £120, £130 for a Record Power and Axminster budget device.
All right, Mike, I know you've owned at least 3 scroll saws. You had the first one, then you stepped up to the DeWalt, and now you have, is it the Pegasus, or what is the one that you have now?
Yeah, the Pegasus is the one I have now. I mean, I still have the DeWalt. It's really my daughter's scroll saw now. I strictly use the Pegasus. But yeah, I went from the benchtop brand scroll saw because the main thing is I went to cut this pattern real quick. This pattern.
It's
this
a
was my
horse
second.
head.
Yeah, the horse head. This was my second pattern I cut, and I wanted to do that. It was from my father-in-law, and I knew I couldn't do it with the benchtop because, first of all, the depth on it and the throat that I was able to cut was like 16 inches. I wanted longer, so I went and I found used DeWalt, the 788 saw, and I think I paid $250. I think it was with the stand, and it was a fine saw to start with. I mean, if I started with the benchtop one and stuck with it, I probably wouldn't have stayed with it. I know a bunch of people started with the Harbor Freight one, and the thing with the Harbor Freight one is not so much that it's not a great saw. It's a pain in the neck for the blades because the Harbor Freight one needs pin blades, and in order to do real tight material, you need a pinless.
Yeah.
And so you have to get the attachments for the adapters, and they're more of a pain in the neck to set that up than to actually cut on the saw. So that's why I say go with the Delta or the DeWalt.
Delta? I mean, Delta I can see as well. But Harbor Freight isn't really known for their quality power tools. So people should take that under advisement before they go spending. I mean, even though they're very cheap, there's a reason why the power tools are that cheap.
Yeah.
What are the good things to look for, and what should be avoided? Because I mean, Mike, you had talked about the throat depth on your scroll saw, and I know that the throat depth on a scroll saw is, in many instances, in some instances it's not, but in many instances it can limit what you do. Whereas opposed to, like, I think the scroll saw I have currently, I think I have like a 14-inch depth on it, which is a very small scroll saw, which is not really that big of a deal, but you can step up to ones that are like have 21 inches, which is, I'm assuming, something like along the lines of what you have now, Mike.
Yeah, the Pegasus is a 21-inch. The DeWalt is technically a 20-inch, but I do large patterns. I use a spiral blade, which means I could cut in any direction I want. So I've done what was the biggest piece? I think it was 3 foot by 4 foot sign I did on the scroll saw, and that was on the DeWalt. So now I can an inch bigger. So
obviously, with a 21-inch scroll saw, you can cut 42 inches.
Yeah, theoretically, yeah, you cut with a spiral blade. Yeah.
But there's the reality of that, which is the, I mean, we're plunging into blades, but with the reality is being able to manage the cut.
Yeah.
You know, as you're trying to bring the saw to. So I guess, I mean, I go at a slight tangent of this. I use spirals where appropriate. I tend to stick with flat blades. So I worry about the throat when I'm doing what I'm doing. So my solution to that was to buy an EX30 yesterday. In fact, to replace my EX21. And the idea there is the throat depth is a limiting factor. That's theoretically 30 inches from the point blade to where it goes clunk. if you're doing a turn on it. But again, the same conversation comes up, which is the if you're turning a 30-inch piece of timber, you're quite far away from that blade. So the reality is, I think throat depth is important, but a 16 or an 18-inch will get you going. Take you an awfully long way before you have to worry about the 21s and beyond.
Yeah.
So the good things to look for besides throat depth. I mean, is there anything besides that you would say would be a good thing to look for, or are there?
Two things. Again, building on what Mike says, pinless blades are pinned blades are something that most of the low end saws have. They kind of take back to that traditional, coping saw idea of the two little pins that hold them in. But buying a saw that allows you to use pinless blades easily is a godsend. It truly is. It takes the experience from being a pain in the ass, for want of a better phrase, or an axe you change blade, and have big holes and all that, to something that's a joy. Pegas blade chuck, which would be on Mike's saw, the Pegas blade chuck that's on mine. It's quick, it's instant, there's no drama, and you can do a lot quickly, thread quickly, see through quickly. So that would be being able to change the or reconnect or rethread a pinless blade is a key buy if you can. Now, a lot of the low end ones need adapters and stuff, but the quicker you can do that, the more fun you'll get from that. So all day long.
All right, now a little inside info, because I know, Jamie, you were invited to Record Power, I believe, to review some saws that they were about ready to release, and they were looking for your input on them. And you had several criticisms about them before they went to market, and they actually pulled it back from market based on what you had to say. So, I mean, what was it?
Yeah, so they were going to upgrade the 16-inch saw, which is what they have right now. It's basically exactly the same 16-inch standard saw you see almost everywhere you go in the UK, and a lot of places you go in the US as well, because they basically all come out of China and all get sprayed a different color. A lot of the stuff that they were doing was they added a different shape table, inserts in the table what weren't needed. They upgraded the motor, they changed the blade clamps, and I basically just looked at it and says, that's not an upgrade. I basically told them quite straight, maybe a bit too blunt, that wasn't what they needed to do. And I told them what they needed to do to make the saw better, and that's basically what they should be in the process of doing. But I'm still working with them, as far as I know, to bring out a new saw, possibly an 18 or 21-inch scroll saw.
Okay, Andy he from AHB Spoke has a question on the chat. He says, it's been suggested that making a larger platform for the saw bed is a good idea. Is that true or not true, or does that just depend on what you're doing?
100%.
My jump in on this one was the second thing that's important to look for is the low end saws tend to have quite small tables. So the bigger the table you've got, the better it is. If you're doing spirals specifically, the ability to have a longer table to support the work is worth its weight in gold. So making quite literally a scroll saw table, the same way as you would a bandsaw table or a drill table, it makes such a difference to your ability to cut fragile work and support it while you're doing that cut.
Especially doing portraits where you guys get down to, like, there's a piece of wood that is in the middle that's like 1/8 of an inch thick. And if you went to go hang that off the side of a saw, and that would crack, like a freaking heartbeat. So that would help. Okay, so that answers that. Let me see. I got some questions from our inquisitive.
There's if you follow Charles Deering on Facebook, I think Charles has been posting some pictures of his scroll saw table where he has a piece of perspex underneath the saw. It's a really good example of how you can extend quite the bed of a saw.
Yeah, he puts a Lexan, right?
Yeah, I think he sanded it and painted the underside black to stop reflections of the camera
for his lives.
Yeah, so that while he's doing streaming.
It's a good table, good solution.
All right, Andy Pugh has some questions.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know. Dale, nobody knows that better than Jamie and I. The first question he had, I'm actually not even going to ask because Richard isn't here to defend himself, Andy. So if you don't mind, I'm not going to ask that one. But his second question was, and if you really want to know what his first question was, he wanted to know the examples where a scroll saw was better than a router, and we're not going to go there.
Well, you could do
No.
that.
I said we're
Real quick,
not
Chris,
going to go there.
It's nothing derogatory. You're not going to give a 8-year-old a router. You will give an 8-year-old a scroll saw. So
Okay.
in that
Good show.
aspect, for a kid to use, I would say a scroll saw is better than a router. Other than that, it's the tool is a tool. So
Okay.
The simple
fighting
answer
over
is the simple answer is it isn't.
I would have been better off. I would have been better off just in asking that question, wouldn't I? All right. Anyway, thanks, Andy, as always, for your intriguing questions. Jesus God. Second question. What, in your opinion? I mean, I'm going to take this that meaning because Andy wants to know from your own experience. And I guess we all have different experiences when we first start. You know, there's that old saying that all experts were once beginners, but not all beginners become experts. So it kind of comes from that perspective. What are some mistakes that beginners make when they first try to do something? And I'm not, because it's easy to turn this thing on and feed wood into it. So I'm not talking about doing that. I'm talking about when they're actually trying to make something that is they want to be nice. What kind of mistakes do beginners make?
One of the first ones is they don't tighten they don't tighten the tension enough, or they tighten it too much.
On the blade, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
So you got to have just the right amount of tension. You don't put you put too much on, the blade's going to break. Don't put enough on, blade's going to break.
So there's a happy medium that only experience in using it will teach you.
Yeah, usually it's apparently it's supposed to be like it's like a C sharp. So you can actually download a guitar toner to your phone, and when you pluck the blade, it should sound like a C sharp.
Oh, there you go.
I've got a couple kind of thing, but there's a good one out in the chat.
That's
From
why
one of
Dale
the
started
big cities.
collecting scroll saws, so he can start playing the guitars on his scroll saw.
That's it. We're gonna do a what would be so. I mean, mine's is much more philosophical, I guess. It's make something. Don't just turn the thing on and try to custom. Make something you actually want to show off to people. It doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it is, but make something you want to show off and don't make it too complicated. Get some fun and enjoyment straight away. Don't try to tackle a huge, hideously complicated portrait because you won't. And the other thing is, if it's going to be an arty piece, make it something you want to hang on your wall. Don't go to town. Don't try to do a tremendously complicated thing, because usually most people want quick results.
Yeah,
they start getting into things. They want to get something. So go easy, go simple on the design or the pattern that you're trying to do. That would be my piece of advice. Don't go chasing. Don't go chasing a tiger or a cow barn or whatever.
Also, if you're on the fence about hating Charles Deering, do one of his patterns. That will really seal it for you.
I'm in the same school as Damo, because one of the first things I did as a beginner, and look, I am nowhere near as skilled as the three gentlemen that are beside me today. But I mean, one of the first things I screwed up on as a beginner was not keeping proper pressure on the wood that's by the blade, because I had more pieces break on me because I was holding it from the sides, just kind of feeding it in and like having the blade in the middle and then trying to do a cut. And because if you do that, the wood tends to vibrate with the saw blade, just like it would on And so you have to actually hold that down to the bed in order to make the cut you think you really need to make. So, Damo, thank you for that, because that was a reminder I didn't really want, but it's relevant. So
it's interesting. There's another piece of advice. Sorry, Mike, go on.
I was just going to say is like
I'll shut up.
I was going to say take something and cut it. The thing is people are like, oh well, there's patterns out there to learn how to cut straight and circle. Don't get hung up on doing those. Just grab a pattern or some a simple pattern. Steve Good, he has thousands of patterns that you could start from the easiest all the way up to an advanced one. Do a pattern. Start cutting. Go slow. Don't do full speed. Don't go full speed. Go slower speed. Also do. Remember that you don't actually have to cut every single line in a pattern. Visually you can kind of gauge if you want to do every horsehair or every piece of shrubbery or so if it starts getting a little too much for you, skip one, do every other one. A lot of the times you can kind of get away with leaving some things not cut.
I think one of the things that people tend to do wrong as well is that a lot of people seem to think that they can just get a piece of wood, get a scroll saw and just rush through it. So one of the things that I would suggest is slow down. If you think that it's going to be a fast-paced hobby, think again.
Well, Mike, are you talking about the kind of keep it simple, stupid approach? Because and look, hey, I'm a novice. I don't know much about it, but I've seen some scroll saw work that I went and looked at it and went, wow, somebody put a lot of work into it. But then I've stepped back at it and I've looked at it and gone, somebody really didn't need to put that much work into it. It was like, you did too much to it. It's like you could have left it like this and it would have been friggin' awesome. Like, I don't need to see the sunshine off of the car hood or off of the eye coming out of. I really, really would have been great without that. It's like, is it possible to get too detailed?
So so that's interesting because I was going to challenge Jamie there a little bit. So my view is that you should be able to knock out whatever a good piece of art in a couple of hours. In fact, I've made it a mission. I've made it a mission to be able to knock out a full piece that's someone would like to hang on a wall in a couple of hours. And sometimes I'm successful, and sometimes, oh God. But the trick to that is the spirit of. You're doing the spirit of a woman, or the spirit of a car, or the spirit of a horse, or the spirit of and capturing that in the art. So the scroll saw stops becoming important so much. But what you're really moving into is the art, the art of creating art.
Well, I guess that's what I'm talking about. And the art is in the eye of the beholder. Because sometimes I see things and I think less would be more, but other times people look at that and go, no, more is actually is more. And it really depends on your eye and what you want. I guess
100%.
I don't mean to be that as a criticism. I mean, don't get me wrong here. I'm just saying, for me, sometimes I think more is less, where I could get more out of it if there was less work being done on it. But that's just my opinion, and it's only on and I don't want to say it's to everything, because I mean there are some pieces very detailed pieces like Jamie turned he scrolls out the Queen. And I saw that horse head that Mike did. That was a second project. Though the detail they put into those was absolutely phenomenal, and it looks spectacular. But there are times when I think less is more. That's all I'm saying. So don't go throwing rotten tomatoes at me. All right, I'm not being a jerk.
The other thing is the blade. The blade selection is key. Like I do 99% of my patterns, I cut with a 2/0 spiral, and then my perimeter or my straight cuts, I'll use a Pegasus modified geometry number. Modified geometry number 3. So those are my two go-to blades. Now people say when you're cutting, 2x4s, I made 3 cars for donation a while back. I was using I did start on a 2-aught blade, and then I ran out, and then I was using, like my number 5s. But people are like, you can't cut thick wood with a 2-aught blade. Well, I can't think of his name now. I just lost this. he cut an inch. I think it was an 1.5 inch Schaefer. Oh man, I'm sorry. I drew a blank. I saw it at a show. He did an 1.5 inch. I think it was oak with a 2-aught blade, and the detail on it was phenomenal. So there is a chart out there that you can go by.
Pegasus
I use it as a reference. What?
Pegasus has a chart.
Bear Woods has a chart.
Yeah,
you can go there.
Let me ask a question. I mean, is this a problem with some scroll saws and not others, or is it? I don't know. Maybe it's just the crappy one I have. Maintaining the pressure on the blade. Do you find that if you use it for a period of time that the saw, because of the vibration, may actually loosen the blade?
Depending on the blade.
So
is that something you have to constantly check? It's a technical question. I'm just asking.
I think I know. I haven't got no wires hanging out. So what I think. So in my case, so with these, I don't know where you can set up for. Sorry for the people on SoundCloud, but you have to come over to YouTube next time. See the little scrub screws coming in the side of these clamps.
Yes, and that's the right. that's a clamp to hold the pinless blade.
Yeah, so this would in this case would be in the top. So when it clamps, it brings tension. There'll be another one at the bottom. So when you clamp it, there'll be tension there, right? So in my case, because I use spirals a lot of the time, this one's actually got a straight blade in it. As I say that. So what happens is with this one is because the spiral blade is twisting all the way around, right from top to bottom. There's never going to be a flat connection where these grub screws are, okay. Right? So what's actually happening is these 2 screws, as they're joining together, they're going to get marred up and scuffed up. So eventually you have to join them tighter and tighter together, right? So eventually it gets to the point where there's no threads left. So every now and again you actually have to replace them, but it wouldn't hurt every now and again just to take the grub screw out and just run it over a bit of 240 sandpaper till it's flat, and then all of a sudden you can just put it straight back in again.
Okay, and that prevents the tension from being.
Yeah, because basically what it's actually doing is it's scuffing it all up, and it's not actually gripping to anything.
So I think there's another one in there. So that's right. But the blades, depending on the manufacturer and the metal, blades will stretch if you leave them under tension for a period of time. So if you're using the same blade for a long time, it'll slowly but surely stretch a tiny bit, and you need to tighten it back up. And if there's certain manufacturers that stretch a lot. I find Olsen blades when I first started to be, very, very friendly from the perspective of they take a bit of bend and they take a bit of abuse, but by the same token, they stretched really quickly.
The blade itself.
The blade itself, and you can hear it. I mean, there's a wonderful Charles Deering who's in the chat. Did an 18-hour scroll saw marathon, I think it was, and after a while watching that marathon, you could actually hear the blade note changing. And then within a few minutes, it would break because it stretched and stretched and stretched. So it was no longer holding C sharp, if you like. You could hear it. The note would change. And that would be something specifically for a lot of the cheap saws. They also aren't necessarily parallel. So you've got a slight deviation between them. As you tighten up, you're stretching it. You tighten up, you stretch it too much. But the blade ages, if you like, as you're using it, and it stretches, particularly if you're shoving stuff into it rather than letting the blade do the cut.
All of a sudden the blade will go, Layla, snap.
I've had enough of this.
The other thing is that they have the Pegasus chuck heads. You don't have to tighten down. Like the old, the original DeWalt heads, I would wrench them down so tight. Sometimes I use the pliers and
okay. All right. we're getting into minutia that people that are used to using a scroll saw will know. So I want to talk to the beginners once again, because that's where Andy Pugh's question is coming from. And I'm sorry, I actually started that. What skills, if any, should a beginner learn? Is there a skill to it, or is it one of those things
Patience.
where you gotta dive in? You gotta dive in and do it, and that's the way you. I mean, it's an honest question from an honest man, so I figured I'd ask it.
I think
So everyone says
patience.
patience. Everyone says patience, and I think I'm living proof where you don't need to have any. Everything I do, kind of, I try to squeeze into an hour or two, kind of thing. So I kind of not patience. What I think is
more patience of yourself, not of
exactly.
doing.
Yeah. I guess where I'm at with that, where I was going to go is that the skills you'll need to learn on this is to restraint is the word I would use, because the scenario you've got is, as we just said, about pushing the work into the blade to make it cut quicker. You have to learn that age-old woodworking trick of let the blade do the work. Let the blade cut the material. Let the blade cut. If you've got that as a woodworker going into using a scroll saw, then after that is how do you turn that? How do you move the piece back and forward? And that just comes with practice. But that one piece of restraint is amped on a scroll saw because the blade is so thin.
Yeah.
I would say, grab a bunch of blades and try a whole bunch of blades, a whole bunch of wood, and different thicknesses, different species, and get the feel of the saw. Because, like I say, I use a 2-aught and I could fly through on thin stuff, and I could go fast on thick stuff. Now, when you do go fast on thick stuff, you have to know, because the blade will flex. So if you're pushing faster than it's cutting, you'll actually kind of cut on an angle. Like the top of the line, you'll look like you're cutting, stopping, but it's not. The bottom is further away from you. So you kind of have to
putting a bevel on it, yeah.
So it's really a feel. It's really just get in and do it multiple times, and don't put too much into your first few pieces. It's just it comes with practice. Practice of getting to the line, getting what blade you're using, how fast you're going, how fast the speed of the saw is. So that's my thing.
Basically, what I'm hearing is that there's really isn't much you can do to prepare yourself for this. It's just get the saw, turn it on, and practice.
Yeah, so there's a couple of other things. Charles Deering just put in the chat, and I'm going to kind of go on a little bit more from there as well. He says, "Don't beat yourself up about it. You can take don't beat yourself up. I'm going to get my words right in a minute. Don't beat yourself up about it. If you can't keep on the blade on the line, don't worry about it. It takes practice. So, also at the end of the day, if you're not on the line, as long as you're roughly on the line, as soon as that pattern comes off, no one else is going to know the hell of a difference. Because once that pattern's removed, there is no pattern. There is no mistake.
So I've got to challenge that a tiny bit, because that works for an art piece where you're interpreting the material. So 100%, Jamie. I think you and I think everybody here.
Yeah, obviously, if it's way off. I mean, if it's a millimeter off.
But if you're cutting letters, if you're cutting things that need to be precise, then that pattern adherence has got to be something you try. Just to, so from the perspective of if you're cutting an art piece, if you're cutting a snippy or you're cutting a horse, it's not so important. But if you're cutting the wheels of a small car or a cog for something, then you kind of got to. I come back to that same piece. I think is the just a little bit of a restraint, but totally
obviously, it comes back to certain patterns. Yeah, you know what I mean, obviously depends on what you're going to be cutting. I guess my second one would be, don't be scared of breaking blades. You're going to break blades right at the start.
Yeah,
but blades are peanuts. So if you break a blade, don't beat yourself up about it. It's going to happen.
I think you pay a blade in the UK. Blade in the UK for a Pegas blade in the UK is about 19 pence each. for a blade kind of thing. You know, what I mean, what else can you do? What else can you smash up for 19 pence? That I mean, that's going to give you so much enjoyment otherwise. It's just got to my mind. To my mind, I keep coming back to that idea of, just get into it. Just have a go. Don't worry. Just a little bit of restraint on that blade, and remember that only great wood turners can cut themselves with a scroll, so everyone else can't.
I actually had an answer for your 20 pence question, but I'm not going to go there today. Because you mentioned bringing so much enjoyment. I'm going, well, never mind. Jamie, those are the questions I have. So, my friend, once again, I'm here for the no kidding, and oh yes. So this is all yours, buddy. So take it from here.
I'll be honest, I haven't got a clue where to go. So let's talk. I guess we can talk about where we can get some scroll saw patterns from. So I guess we could. The first person that comes to mind when it comes to scroll saw patterns would be, I guess, Mr. Scroll Saw himself. That would be Steve Good. So Steve Good, he has got a whole array of scroll saw patterns for the beginner. I think his website's Steve Good at Blogspot, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Just search for Steve
Good on
Steve's
Google and you'll
Good,
find them.
Yeah.
he's
Just search for
a
Steve
legend.
Good scroll saw patterns on Google, and it will come up. He's got thousands of patterns online. Then you've got Sue May, which is another one. Sheila Landry is another one. Charles Deering is another one. Actually, Eloy started making some as well, didn't he? Was it Maker Patterns? I think they were called. I can't remember. So also, for those that are doing scroll sawers out there, there's actually a Facebook group on Facebook called Team Scroll Saw. So it's a group run by myself, Dale, Julie Martinez, Charles Deering, Mike, and various other people. And basically, all you got to do is, if you're into scrolling, you like scrolling, whatever it is, as long as you've got a scroll saw and you haven't cut yourself with a scroll saw, you can basically get into the group. So yeah, it's a group called Team Scroll Saw on Facebook. Every now and again, we sell T-shirts over there. So once we sold the T-shirts, we do a giveaway so we can give something back to the group. So everything we do over there, if money-wise, gives back into the group.
I actually did Jamie, maybe you'll remember, this was like 4 years ago. I actually did a Halloween video that I was actually using the freaking scroll saw I have, and I across the bottom of the screen it said, "You have to be a complete dumbass to hurt yourself on a scroll saw." And then the next scene, I showed that I'd cut my finger off on it. And
I think you actually cut yourself on the bandsaw, though, didn't you?
We need to find that.
I did, but
I've got that picture.
But I came back and said, I went to the doctor and he said, "Don't worry, it'll grow back." Anyway, that was just kind of a muse about how hard it is to hurt yourself on a scroll saw. But I guess So I guess on Halloween
it's
So
tough.
Charles has kindly put over in the chat some more names of designers. So there's Charles Hand, Mike Williams, Russ Beard, and Botas Helder. Sorry.
Oh, Alex Fox is another one.
Alex
Penny
Fox.
Hopkins.
They sell on. Alex Fox sells on Etsy. I know that. I know Wes does patterns. I'm not sure if he does them to the public. Where Wes Balco. I know he does them, but I'm not sure if he does them to the public or if they're just custom patterns. Maybe we can find that out and let people know for the Wednesday release. So yeah, there's that. So yeah, there's Dale also does patterns as well. Every now and again he'll give away a pattern, depending on what one it is, depending on what kind of mood he's in. Over on Team Scroll Saw. Jason Henry, there's another one. So yeah, I guess that would probably be about it.
Oh, there's loads and loads of people that do the patterns out there, which is great to
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Let me ask a question, and this is a question from me, because I've seen Dale, I've seen you do it, and I've seen Justin Christensen do it, and I'm curious to know because you and he put out patterns. I mean, you've cut pieces from the scroll saw, but they are colored pieces that have that make sense from a it's a character. Now, is that something that you rely on primarily from the color of the wood, or is there some staining involved in that? Or I mean, I'll be honest with you, because it's almost like in Tarja, the way you guys do it.
I mean, both myself and I'm grateful you include me along with Justin, who is a hero of mine and all of this
He's a
stuff. 'Cause Justin's
jackass.
work is he's
Oh, no.
he's an amazing guy.
Who's that?
And
I don't know.
And if you don't believe us,
Don't let him hear you say that.
Go check his
don't let
stuff
Justin-
out.
seriously, if you
Don't let
don't believe,
Justin hear you say that.
no, wait,
Yeah.
shut up. Because if you don't believe us about that, just go ask Justin. He'll tell you how freaking amazing he is.
Is absolutely, but he is good at what he does, and we should respect that. What I think of is that so the way you introduced, so there's kind of two ways to do it if you were to use a Charles Deering pattern. Charles depends upon capturing the light by cutting out a piece or making sure a piece is retained and capturing in that sort of two color sort of approach. I take detail out by introducing color. So you don't need to put in so much detail if you trap the impression of by using color. So I think for me, I either use paint, stain, or ideally the wood itself. So I'll frequently use, for example, if we talk about Moonchild here, Moonchild is the color of the wood. It's a black backer, and her orange hair is stained because I couldn't get anything that quite matched that. But what I've done is you use the color to draw the detail rather than try to cut that detail in specifically. So yes, I think the answer is ideally use the wood, but I'm not afraid to use paint or stain to where those colors aren't available in the actual material itself. That's your question.
Chris, you're muted, mate.
You're muted, sir.
There's a reason for that, because I was cussing while you guys were talking. I'm kidding. I knew you had to stack cut in order to make those kind of portraits. I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how.
Anyone tells you to, no, they don't.
Okay.
No, they don't.
Apparently, I don't know that. But let me finish what. I'm going back on mute. You guys.
So I stack up with the stuff that I do, which is stuff like this. And one of the reasons why I stack cut doing stuff like that is basically so I can cut two or
you don't want to
three
have to cut it twice.
yeah, I don't want to have to do it twice or 3 times. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why. So that's also a Mr. Deering pattern. That was the first time I ever used spiral blades.
All right, let me ask this question to see if I can remain in the conversation. Guys, this is a show about scroll saws. This is me, okay? I'm trying. Please,
You're doing well, mate. You're doing well.
A little empathy, thrown my way right now.
You should at least send them a Team Scroll Saw shirt.
Get him a shirt.
You're doing awesome, Chris. I'm surprised you turned up, if I'm honest.
Well, you know what? So am I. But I mean, honestly, looking at work like you're talking about, Dale, and looking at work that Justin does, because I don't know if Justin uses stains or not. I mean, I honestly don't. But how many? I guess it depends on your area or what's available to you. How many different types of wood are available to you to scroll saw, and actually, without using stain or paint, actually have a different color in a piece that you're using? I mean, because we're talking about because you guys use like what, 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch ply?
So I mean, for backers, it's plywood all day long for me, birch ply. And the birch ply backer has always got to be coloured in some fashion. You've always got to, stain it or paint it. Certainly from where
talking
I'm
about the
at.
piece itself, though, Dale.
Exactly. So there's quite a lot you can buy. But the truth is it's quite expensive, really, to get it. From flat perspective. So you can usually get oak. You can usually get Padauk. You can usually get Sapele is flat. Boards, so you've got some colors, but it can be quite challenging to get anything readily available, big enough to be able to do it. Certainly in the UK, it's quite challenging. Not impossible, but quite challenging, and quite challenging to do cost effectively.
So I know Justin uses nothing but actual wood, so he doesn't use any stains.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, Jim, but I didn't want to make that call. But if you know that for sure, then that's cool. I just didn't know what kind of material was readily available because I don't know, Mike. You and I live in the kind of the same neck of the woods, and I've never really looked into it because I'm obviously not into this profession. But I don't see a lot of different types of veneered ply that would do that for me.
No, most of the time what I do is I'll either stain it or I'll paint. That's the because the other thing is a lot of these times I'm not. I shouldn't say a lot of times. Sometimes I make these patterns, I cut them for, free to people. Whether it's a gift, whether it's, just a thank you to someone. So I'm not going to spend, $150 on exotic wood to make it a pattern that
look pretty,
I can do with stain.
When you can do with an $8 can of stain. All right, quick question from Richard once again, from the Beard 16. And it's a good question. And if you don't mind, I'll give him the answer first, and you guys can go from there. His question is: so how do we get the youngsters interested in scrolling? Because let's face it, they are our future. Richard, in my experience, if you're going to get the kids interested in scrolling, buy a decent scroll saw. Only because, at the time that my parents bought that, like I said, I was 14 years old. And at that time, it was probably considered a decent scroll saw. But today, the standards have gone up like 20 floors as to what a decent scroll saw is. Make sure it's an enjoyable experience for them, would be my recommendation, so that they're not fighting the machine and they're actually enjoying what they're doing. Because then they might develop an interest. But if they're fighting a machine that is not really up to scratch, then they're probably not going to be, interested for very long. It's going to be like, oh, neat, Daddy, let's go get lunch.
I'm gonna agree and kind of disagree at the same time.
Okay.
On this one, so the reason I'm going to disagree is because I don't think it's really got anything to do with the saw. I think it's got more to do with the attention span. And the reason why I'll say this is I've done 2 demonstrations for Record Power on the scroll saw. The first one, I took the Tiger with me, and there was people there, and they took their kids with them, and they stood at the table 2 minutes, not even that, walked away. Didn't have any interest whatsoever, really. And they were like, their first reaction was, wow, that's good, and walked away. Right? The year afterwards, I was cutting little compound cut pieces, right? And they had their kids over with them. And the kids were taking them little things off the table as quick as I was making them. And I was selling scroll saws for Record Power so fast because kids wanted to make these as Christmas decorations and things like that. They were saying, Mum, Dad, I want one.
It's coming back to me, there's kind of 2 elements that I think work for everybody, and I think it doesn't matter if you're a kid or if you're a grown-up. It's speed of output. Can you make it quick? So the compound cuts are fantastic for that. And the other one's relevance. If you can make that something that's relevant to a kid's world, then they'll be interested. So it's like, I've showered some love in Charles on this show, but don't give them a Charles Deering picture. Give them Daffy Duck or
Fortnite logo or something like that.
Something that's right in there. I made this, but it's still cool because it's Stormtrooper head or what have you. It's whatever, something like that.
I cut my favourite Minecraft character or something
Boom.
like that. Do you know what I
Exactly
mean?
Or Minion. Beto,
Minion.
Beto.
100%. 100%.
Exactly. Hello,
Something like
Kitty.
that.
All right, gentlemen, I hate to cut this conversation short. He lies, but it's time to let Jamie sing his tune, and
I
we
want
are.
to know how you said that with a smile on your face, Chris.
I'm sorry, what I do?
You said that you're grateful that it was ended.
No, I would never. I mean,
Right, so all right, well, let's just get on with it then. It's time for Jamie's Page. Right,
oh, you gotta
Is he done?
sing it, Jamie.
Is it done? No.
all right. It's time for Jamie's Page.
We just
Has
had
he
a
done
really
it?
we just had a really bad barbershop quartet happen with us right here. Okay, everybody on three. You ready? No, we got all four of us here on three. We got to sing Jamie's Page. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Jamie's Page. Oh God, we suck. Oh God, that sucks. All right, go ahead, Jamie.
Right. So I'm just going to say that the one thing is so on the 31st is the end of my 5K giveaway. So unfortunately, it's going to be over by the time the Wednesday release of the podcast is out. So for the people out in the live chat now, I've got a 5K giveaway running on my YouTube channel now. So if you haven't got your entries in, you better get them in before the end of the 31st at midnight UK time, because it's going to be closing then, and there'll be no more entries after that. Also, congratulations to me on hitting 5K. Again, even though that was mentioned last week.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie. Congratulations.
Happy 5K to you. Happy 5K to you.
Jamie was in need of some attention today. Okay.
Oh,
Congratulations.
no, you did it last week as well, Chris.
Why not? Well, then why did you? But he's really needy then,
I
apparently.
just needed to big myself up.
Oh,
Need to big myself up.
Oh dear.
Right. So, despite the fact Maker Central's many months away, we're doing stickers on the podcast website at £20 discount at checkout via our website. Just go to makersinternationalpodcast.com. At the top of the page, there's a tab called stickers. Click that. It will direct you to our website. You fill in all your details, and it'll give you £20 off at checkout. So that's all that. I'm not going to tell you to set up another website email address if you've used one before, because that will be wrong, apparently. So yeah, my shout out for today is going to be none other than Maple Tree Studios, aka Dale, in the chat. One of the reasons.
What did you do that was so
What
freaking
did I do?
One of the reasons. I'm kind of sticking to the Scroll Saw theme today, and I'm giving him a shout out because of the stuff that he does. He puts out some real nice patterns. Not only are they real nice patterns, but they're real simple patterns.
Where's my wallet?
Anyone can do them. And he gives a lot of patterns out for free as well. So
Never charged for a
yeah,
pattern
that's my shout out is Dale. So and a lot of Dale's patterns are over on the Team Scroll Saw Facebook page. So yeah, a lot of the stuff he does on his YouTube channel are the patterns that he's obviously already cut, and obviously a lot of the patterns that he's already cut he's given away.
Awesome. Well, I mean, let's give it to the other Brit. Dale, you got anybody you want to give some love?
I'm still in shock. So my shout out goes to and I need to apologize if I've got this wrong, the pronunciation, because I've only known him as Dennis or Wooden. So Dennis Duperon, I think his name is, aka Wooden, who I've known him as. He has a channel which is mostly Scroll Saw. It's quite a relative. He's been kind of doing it for about a year on the channel. Did a few things recently to keep it up. He's only got a few hundred subs, but he's getting there. He's moving along. He's starting to make some cover some ground, and I like what he's doing. I like where he's going. So
Hell of a
Dennis
nice guy.
Brown, aka Wooden.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Mike, up to you, buddy.
My shout out is Dale. No, just kidding.
Oh, jeez.
Oops.
Just kidding. My shout out is Derek from Alden. He is not a scroll star, but he's an awesome guy. He helps me with a lot of things, and he's on YouTube. He's making signs, and check him out. He's playing with epoxy. Good guy all around. He's from Boston.
From Boston. Boston.
He packed his car in Harvard Yard.
All the links to the shout outs that we just gave today are down in the description today, and they'll be down in the description on Wednesday as well. Dale, I guess I'm forced to say thank you. Mike, I guess I'm forced to say thank you. Jamie, I'm not doing it. So, I mean, this is up to you, buddy.
If he doesn't say thank you, there'll be a part 2 of this episode.
I need about 6 more of these, and I'll be all right, guys. Don't worry about it.
They send a man a case of they send a man a case of Sammys to recover from this, Jamie.
All right.
I think so. Don't forget, I've got a premiere in about 28 minutes as well.
All right. Well, one quick note, Dale and Mike, as we end the show, don't go anywhere. Okay, stay right here because I have some things I want to ask you guys. Anyway, go ahead, Jamie. I'm sorry.
Right. So, are we going to stand for the Patreon because we don't have Patreon because we don't need Patreon and all that kind of stuff?
I don't care. You can do what you want, but I
Yeah.
even after that, I want you guys to hang out for a second.
Sorry, can I interrupt you, Jamie?
You've got the
There's
button.
2 things I've got to say. I've got to say discombobulate, and apparently I have to say Bobby. I forgot all about it. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, that was extremely important. I'm glad you interrupted me. What an idiot. Anyway, go ahead, Jamie.
Okay. Right. So let me just make sure my mouse is in perfect working order. And then we'll quickly run through the chat. So out in the chat, we've got Mark the Gentleman Woodturner, Charles Deering, Wayne the Woodturner, Andy Pugh, Lee at Marley Bew Crafts. We also have Dale. What are you doing out there? Frankie CNC and Woodworking Channel. Who else got? Pot Gaita Woodturning. Donna from over at Love Angel. Andy Hill from AH Bespoke. The Beard Time 16. John at Wood If I Could. Dennis is out there from Woodland.
And a lot of other people.
Or Wooden Dennis.
And a lot of other people. And we
Circular
thank them
Wood
all
by
for coming
Keith.
today. Jamie, wrap it the hell up.
All right. Thanks to Keith for all of that wood, by the way. Right. So thank you everybody from out in the chat. And Caitlin's out there as well. Thank you to everybody that's out in the chat. If you weren't out there in the chat, unlucky. So yeah. Until the next time, pull my finger.
Have a great
Oh,
week.
sorry.
Everybody.
I mean, scroll on.
Have a great week, everyone.
Take it easy, everybody.
Say goodbye.